Good evening and welcome to the umpteenth broadcast of the umpteenth show of the 14th Tête at the Opera Festival from Cockpit Broadcasting. My name is Bill Bankstones. We're live here in the cockpit for this interactive broadcast where these shows were performed a couple of days ago, last Monday. We're an interactive broadcast because the interaction comes after the film. I'll introduce it, we'll play it in a moment, the film of the performance, and then at the end we welcome questions and answers from you to the panel who will appear at the end. One other thing to say before we go ahead is that we've kept the ticket price for this very low because we thought you can pay for it after you've seen it and pay what you feel it's worth. We'd really welcome donations for the artists. In a very old Tête kind of almost over tradition, we've put together tonight two completely unrelated things, one of which is a triple bill which has one bit in two bits almost. If that's not confusing, I'm sure it will be when you watch it. Anyway, we begin with Alice de Lumiere doing a little curtain raiser when the trans lady sings, which is very self-explanatory, before we transport you to EXPO MCYO, Manchester Contemporary Youth Opera. It's a great treat for us to have a show from Manchester. We have pretty much every year since we've done the festival, often more than one. It's lovely to be showing off what they're doing in London anyway. If you'd like to make a donation to either, there's links which you'll get again later, which are easydonate.org/lady and easydonate.org/expo. I think you can work out which is for which. Perhaps you can support both. Anyway, without further ado, let's enjoy this double bill. See you on the other side.
I can't sing. No, seriously, really, I can't sing. Not well, not accurately, not with gusto or elan. To say that I'm tone deaf would be medically inaccurate because I can just about pick out a tune on a keyboard, if only by trial. And error. You see, I know when the melody departs from the path intended by the composer. So I can't be tone deaf. But I cannot do the same with my voice. Not accurately, not reliably. And so, I'm afraid, I will not be singing for you tonight. It's not panto, it's the wrong time. No, I will not be singing for you. No, don't worry, you're not in the wrong theatre. No, Bill is correct, this is the Tête Opera Festival. But they let me, as spoken word artist and performance poet, in to do a short spoken word overture, if you will. A statement of intent. And so, if you have 12 or so minutes, 12, 13 minutes, and you don't mind a little bit of spoken word, I could attempt to explain to you my predicament. Shall we?
Yeah.
Thank you. Why not? Well, look, I will explain. Let's do the biography part first. You see, theatre has always beguiled me, and I use theatre in the broadest possible term regarding anything where there is a performer and audience relationship. When I was little, I dreamed about being a ballerina, but I couldn't dance a step. I also thought how wonderful and grand it would be to be an opera singer, but my singing was worse than my dancing. I then thought, I shall become an actor stroke actress. And that path turned out to be relatively navigable. You see, I realised that I had a facility for speaking in public and I wasn't afraid of audiences. I could do that. So I became a performer, an actor and sometimes an actress, because as you probably noticed, I am gender fluid. Sometimes
Existing as male. You laugh. Interesting reaction, that. Everyone always laughs at that moment. And I'm not picking on anyone because I'm playing it for laughs. I want to laugh. I want a reaction.
But it's true, people do. So that made me think about voice coding, the coding that we put into voice. We code in many different ways. We code visually. Do I fit in? Do I not fit in? We code orally. And one of the ways we code is we code by pitch in voice. We do it subconsciously all the time. We'll hold that thought. We're going to come back to that in a moment. So anyway, I decided to become an actor or actress. And that worked quite well. But I was never a singer. I could never manage that. Now the problem I had when I was at school, my primary school and then my secondary school, they didn't teach drama. There was no drama class. There was no school play. So consequently, the one performance skill that I actually had some innate ability in, I wasn't allowed to use. So, out of sheer bloody-mindedness, I decided, when I got to GCSE, that I would choose music as an option. Something for which I had absolutely no talent whatsoever. I had to start with music theory, and then I started to learn very basic piano. And even for an amateur like me,
As long as I hit all the right notes, and occasionally in the right order,
something vaguely resembling music will appear. But unfortunately I couldn't scoot by in GCSE by just doing a bit of piano, murdering a bit of Beethoven, and looking at music theory, which I found very easy because to me it was maths, and maths was something I was good at. No, I had to learn to sing. I had to join the choir, and that's where it all went horribly wrong. You see, the problem is I can't hear the notes. Also, gender was a bit confusing there, because back then, I was a boy
whose voice had broken. So back in North Essex, from where I come, I had to join the choir, and I had to sing bass. Yes. We tried this to see if I could get one note. I don't know if I have. Maybe. Thus, I was stuck as a bass, wishing I could cross the floor, bursting to just take my place, role of a girl I'd adore. Tenors sing notes in my range, counterpoints far too complex, harmony lines I find strange, tight to the tune they will vex, children with ears cast of tin, wishing I could sing the tune, that's always left to the girls, lessons can't finish too soon. Oh, how I'd love to turn coats. Why did mine have to drop? But they did, and it didn't matter because ultimately it wasn't about gender. I still couldn't pitch down in that bass or tenor register. But then my world was trapped. I was trapped in the choir and I couldn't sing a note. But somewhere else I saw, across the oceans, another world, a world which seemed quite enticing. It was the world of opera, where gender seemed remarkably bendy at times, because I found very stratified. That was my impression of classical music. Soprano, contralto, tenor, bass, your place in the system defined by the limits of your vocal physiology. But opera, oh, here we could see women playing men or boys. Cherubino in The Marriage of Figaro was the first I was aware of. So here you have a woman who's playing a boy who's then, in the course of the narrative, dressed up as a girl. It's a Shakespeare comedy in photo negative. So, I thought, this is interesting. Gender's a little bit more bendy there. Maybe I could do something in the world of opera, but I still couldn't sing. Also, then again, you have another gender confusion, because you have the men who can, countertenors, is it? Yes, who can sing up into that register, which is basically the equivalent of contralto. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's somewhere up there. Now, those voices we would code in many ways with our modern ears as a feminine register, because we do. I'm now lightening my voice, I'm trying to go higher because that's how we code a lot of the time. But I found that was interesting as well. But, notably, I found that, of course, a lot of those men, I'm not going to get too close. Look, we've got marks, I'm not allowed to go closer. Look, there, so I can't be closer. So, we code by gender, and obviously you have the skirt roll as well. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes in opera you have people who are genetically males singing characters which are female. But often they tend to be mad old washerwomen, I've noticed, or witches, or just screeching crones in general. I've come to the conclusion that Terry Jones would have been great in the world of opera in the skirt roll. He's not Don Giovanni! He's a very naughty boy! We're not allowed to be glamorous, it would seem. Maybe there are examples I haven't encountered yet because I'm only just learning about opera. But it would be nice to think it was possible to have your story, and it can be serious as well as just comedic. So this is a stake in the ground today. This is a statement of intent. I'm going to try and do something I've never done successfully over the next year. I'm going to try and learn to sing. I can't complain about my tutors. They were good people. They were excellent. But I just couldn't pick it up. So I'll leave you on a thought, using a medium with which I am more familiar. A poet knows the cliché that the play's the thing, but opera still requires a bard to always sing at pitch, and that's the vocal glitch this fool must face if next year in this festival she earns her place. I'm striving not to wallow, mope, or simply whine, but now I've reached the tender age of 49. I yearn to earn the voice which helps me redefine the roles that I may play so I can make them mine. But there's a truth from my youth which I've summarised. My childhood music demons must be exorcised. Could audiences accept me singing in a frock? Amidst the gender flexibility of mid-baroque. But there's a block in my head which will not sing. Instead it beats out a very unpleasant thing. Outsider in opera, outsider in gender. Crush dreams in a box and return them to sender. Give up before trying, embarrassments less. A cuckoo in music, a man in a dress. Each time you try singing and each time you fail, you're sharp or you're flat. It's the pitch you can't nail. Next year you are 50. It's too late to start retraining and straining and torturing art. No! I refute it. There's reason to try. I'm not just a joke. And I'm more than a guy. And so I have a contract to be witnessed in a most unusual way with your assistance. I here cast down the gauntlet, not to you, but to myself. To give myself a year to retrain a leaden ear, which dampens, hampers, keeps my song unsung. And make a conscious choice to find an operatic voice. Would dramatic contralto really be too much to ask? If this work I don't shirk, might you believe that this girl could unfurl recitative, or might I collapse in the staria, but more technical requirements of an aria? So brace yourselves, critics, I'm spreading my wings, I'm flying, I'm crying, I'm trying new things. Come tutors, come theorists, we might need composing. I'm no Queen of Night, that would need transposing. I'll aim for contralto, which could still spell witches, but some of those ladies are glamorous bitches as long as I don't just get stuck in the breeches. So, buff up the brass section, retune the strings. The score isn't settled till the trans lady
sings.
Adventure through Mother Earth's sewing box. Muslin sounds, each grain woven by her almighty hands. Lace-lined leaves lengthen from her swaddling arms. Damask flowers flourish from the lines in her palms.
Ah, no, I've got it.
Corduroy trees beneath cotton bud clouds above folds of linen.
Oh, blast. Now it's knotted.
And spinning golden through the air are glimmers of her velvet hair that spill like ink on silk, on seams. And underneath her veil, the breeze.
I'd best unpick these final stitches. I'm running out of thread. I look in the sewing box. I can't thread this needle. My thick ankle jacket, it's false and zigzagged. I'm tired and ragged, but if I can just thread this needle. I'm not rightly thinking. My common sense shrieking, my fingers thumb twitching, my sense of self glitching, my sense of self glitching. I must keep on stitching. I must keep on stitching, glitching. But I can't thread this needle. stretching, stretching, stitching.
A broken handle.
Forgotten steel.
I remember. I remember a broken handle. Leather, I think. Leather. Or maybe not. A muddy brown. A march in winter.
Silver painted gold.
I remember. Brown.
Silver
Leather.
painted gold like gold.
Like shit. A suitcase. I thought I saw a suitcase. With a broken handle. Muddy brown. Like a marsh in winter.
The gold is fading, silver painted gold.
I can't remember. But I know. I'm sure. I did. I saw a suitcase. The day before.
Pin was always on the chest, silver painted
A
gold.
suitcase.
Always on the chest, always every day, always was the
A suitcase. Being packed. The day before.
The always pin, always dropped outside the door.
They chose to leave. They packed a suitcase.
Outside the door, the pin was torn away. Mine was taken.
They packed a suitcase.
I remember. They wouldn't leave like that. I know that they were taken. That day when I was 8.
I was 10. They broke my smother day. That
They were taken. I feel it in the marrow of my bones. They loved us.
I hate them. I do. I hate them. They spilled my youth. Trod it in the carpet.
I miss them on long Sunday afternoons.
I see them. Bag in hand. I want to scream. They turn around. It's never them.
I dream them looking for the pin. I dream a ripple in a stream. I miss them.
I want No.
I can't go
I'm breaking. I thought I saw a suitcase, but I can't remember. I can't remember any longer.
Here is unbearable.
Remembering's all I seem to do.
Never coming back.
Remembering changes nothing. Bury them. I'll bury
A coffin without a body, an empty coffin, but not quite empty. A coffin containing a pin.
in a box in the ground.
Bury them. Bury unbearable. Bury remembering them.
Each of our actions is a stitch in the fabric of time. What will yours look like? Humankind, we are a patchwork of he's, she's and its, where no patch is the same and each patch has a name and each patch fits together, and if one of us quits, one not frayed and fraught, that's the end of our tether. We are all we've got, and we've got to keep sewing together. We could ask, we could wish for more time and more thread, but couldn't we use what we've got now instead? Hey stranger, I haven't heard from you in
I just wanted
to check in.
I must
Remember to take
because of this puppet's leash. Reaching out, outside. I'm always here, you need me. I miss you.
If the seas cease and the breezes break, we will take sky, seas and sands into our own hands, elbow to elbow, and until our fists calm to a greeting. Mother Earth will keep us in her palms to forge a meeting where we'll hold and heave the earth together with our tools of time and tether.
Mother Earth will keep us in her palms to forge a meeting when we'll hold and heave the earth together. Time
That sounded absolutely fantastic in the theatre, and if you've got good headphones on, I think it would have sounded absolutely fantastic at home. I hope so, anyway. And before I invite the panel to come and join us, just say once more that each of the companies creating that show would really appreciate you topping up your £1 to make a decent ticket price, or even going beyond that. For Alice, easytonate.org/lady, there you go. I think is very self-explanatory what she'll do over the next year. I think the bit of happy news is Alice has got Arts Council funding to supplement whatever you might give. So the more you do, the more we'll get next year. And then easytonate.org/expo will allow MCYO to run more courses in the future and run other projects like this. Now, panel, would you like to come and join us and tell us a bit more about this? In due course, I think, in due course, I think it would be quite interesting to hear a bit more about MCYO. But I think just to start us off, I'd love to do a bit of, you can become self-chairing for a moment. I think it will save us time. And as each of these pieces in a very different way was about learning, it would be lovely to hear from each of you what your involvement was in the project that you did and one thing that you learned from it. And then if you could choose somebody else to go after you, then I'll put my feet back and enjoy what you're saying. So Mia, what were you doing? What did you learn? What's one thing you learned, and who would you like to hear from after you?
So I was singing there, and I was also a curating artist for this EXPO MCYO project, which I think is what I learned the most from. And I'd say the main thing that I learned, which has been such a positive experience for me, has been this leveling of hierarchy and learning how to make an opera without one big boss. And it's been such a fruitful experience in that way, and I've learned to be more independent in myself as a singer. I've learned different skills such as marketing, which Leo thankfully helped me with. So it's been a wonderful experience and something that I hope collaboratively we can cultivate more in opera. I will pass over to Alice then.
Hello. Can you hear me, everyone? I hope you can. My name is Alice de Lumiere, and I'm the writer-performer of the piece. I've been working. What I've learnt is how open and actually how accessible the world of opera is, and how kind everyone's been. And I've also learned that I still can't pitch a note, which is interesting. So there we go. And on that lack of note, I shall pass over to Pat.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Patrick, and I wrote the music for Adela with Arabella Watkiss, who wrote the words. I think that what I learned most from the process was to be a little bit more careful. I made so many mistakes just by being a bit of a my head just not doing it, and I had to keep checking over and changing things, and that was really appreciated because people throughout MCYO kept like making suggestions and pointing these things out to me. So collaboration as well was really valuable. I shall pass over to Amy.
Hello, so I'm Amy, and I sang Adela, and was also the voice of B in Glimmerings. I'd say probably the biggest thing that I learned throughout this project is that anything's possible, really, especially at the moment. It's very difficult to think forward at the moment in terms of, COVID rules and things like that. Obviously, we are opening up, but it was difficult under the circumstances. And for me, over the past year, I've sort of taken a step back really from performing. I mean, everybody sort of had to, but in terms of online things, I wasn't involved with creating much online really, because it's not for me, I've decided. But doing this project has made me realize that actually it is possible to combine the two. And create something wonderful out of everything. both live and digital combined. It's been a really interesting experience. Yeah, I'll pass over to Maddie.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Maddie. I was the stage director for the show. And similarly to Amy, I learnt that the combination of audiovisual material and live action can be very interesting, and even if very ambitious, it can come together. So that was new for me. And I also learnt that thread is extremely technically difficult to rehearse on stage. So that was a big learning curve. Yeah, I'll pass to George.
I'm George. I'm actually not really been involved in the creative process here whatsoever, but I'm a PhD student working in contemporary opera, and also run a podcast for the LGBTQ plus music study group. So what I've learned from this is what I come to every new opera festival to learn, which is about two new companies who are doing fantastic work, which I hadn't heard before, which thrills and fascinates me. So you delivered. Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm really interested and challenged now, because as you work collaboratively and you don't have a hierarchy, I don't know who to ask. I'll just ask all of you, and somebody jump in who feels like they can answer. Just a really basic question for our audience, in case people are coming to this blind. What is MCYO? What's the point? What are you doing? How did you come together? And where's it going? Mia.
I shall take this one and try and put it forward as best as I can. So MCYO, you may hear me refer to it as MCYO, which is what we call it in the gang. Stands for Manchester Contemporary Youth Opera, and it's been a thing for 5 years now. I did it in 2019 originally. I also did it in 2020. A few of us did it in 2018. So we're all alumni of Manchester Contemporary Youth Opera, and I'd say the ethos is to bring together young creatives from the Northwest, from Greater Manchester, either who've been up there like I have or have come to Manchester to study, and to create new opera that tackles new themes that young people want to put out there in the world, and that does away mainly with traditional hierarchies within opera, gender hierarchies, as we've discussed previously with George and Alice, and sexual hierarchies, and create something new that can go forward, and also cultivates the space for us to meet other creatives that we wouldn't usually be able to meet in Manchester. For example, during the course of last year, I've met visual designers, filmmakers, animators. I've met a bunch of composers, a bunch of instrumentalists, directors, who I would not have been able to be put in contact with, not just to work with, but just to have as friends as well. So it's a wonderful experience that we hopefully will keep having each year, that will grow and have a big branch of alumni and new young people who are coming into the fold, the forge of Mancunian art that we can make sort of for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting phenomenon that, as I said at the beginning, that there has always been a very strong Mancunian presence in Tête, the Opera Festival, and I've never quite pinned down why that is, because it's not as if there aren't other cities with conservatoires like Glasgow or Cardiff, but it's Manchester that seems to be really strong in new opera. That really begs a question, which is really out of my own idle curiosity. I started Tête as a thing to give me shows to develop. It was a totally hierarchical thing that was all about me. It's since morphed a bit and is allowing other people to flow through it much more. Very interesting thing happened last year where COVID forced on us a kind of sort of collaborative partnership where we had time to meet like this and thrash out, just to cling on to each other, really, to get each other through COVID and aiming at something. And we ended up in a very amazing situation where we questioned everything in the management of the festival, and many of the artists came with answers to things that had maybe troubled us for some time, well, it didn't trouble us for a long time, but we went, what should we charge for tickets this year? And had marvellous suggestions like £5,000 for one ticket and all the rest could be free, or we could auction them all, or what we did in the end, which was a librettist said you could have a starving artist ticket for £5, for 15, a support the artist ticket for £5, or I'm talking rubbish. A support the artist ticket for £15 and a starving artist ticket for £5. Thank God there was a librettist to work that out for us. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking much too much about Tête, because I'm very, very interested actually in how the company could take itself over and start running itself. So maybe one other of you could tell us a little bit more about how you got that structure to work. How did you stop the loudest voice in the room talking all the time, and or I like Mia's reaction to that?
I'll give an answer.
Yeah, go on.
So I am a director, but I tend to not be the loudest voice in the room sometimes. So actually, MCYO is the perfect kind of rehearsal environment for me. And arriving for these rehearsals, we all knew, because we'd all done the course before as kind of students still, we all knew exactly how it works and what we all expect of each other in the room. So, I mean, the viola player, Nadia, was as fully involved in the dramatic kind of ideas and creativeness as everyone. So it was like 5 performers who were all equal and all just wanted to make a great show, which is quite unlike anything else that I'm doing at the moment. And yeah, I think that's what's quite special. And there isn't, we didn't even have to talk about it. We just knew that's how it would be. And also behind the scenes as well.
Do you think you needed more time for that? Is it, I mean, I don't want to ask whether you were paid or not, or whether it's a trading thing or what was going on, but what processes like that often take time. Hierarchical processes are traditionally the way of cutting through stuff really quickly, because somebody says it's all like this, that and the other, and then everybody does it. But did you need more time to work in that very even way?
I think no, I think we had a good amount of time. I think if we'd had a week, we would have just talked a lot more, and maybe it then would have deteriorated a bit into chaos. But because we were all pressured and we all knew that we had this amount of time and we were going to be performing, I think that helped a lot actually to work together. And I think it helped rather than hindered the process. Yeah.
Amy, were you about
Yeah, I was just going to maybe add to that, because I think we did actually have a discussion about this, maybe because it was a very quick turnaround in terms of rehearsal time and before we actually performed. But we did have a discussion about it, I think probably on the day just before, because we literally on the day had the tech and then the dress and then boom, that was it. And I think it was just after the dress that, I remember we were talking with Richard as well. And we were sort of discussing how actually if we'd have had another run or another few rehearsals, I don't think the end performance would have been the same, because we had to do it so quickly and had to be so immersed in the experience that by the time the performance came round, we just had to be thinking on our feet. And I think that made the performance even better than it was, say, if we'd have had a whole week or, longer to do it. If we'd have had more runs, it could have got more complex. We could have doubted ourselves more. But because you have to throw yourself into it in that moment, it comes out the way it has, which I think has been really good. And it came out very authentic. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the rehearsal process is, in a traditional way, is very often a couple of days of finding everything, and then another 4 weeks of trying to get it back again, because the spontaneity's gone out, and you have to kind of keep going over it till it comes back. A question for one of the boys, as we haven't had either of you from MCYO, be really interesting to know what you think you learned from the other company. So what did you learn from Alice as part of this double bill? And I'll lob that back to Alice afterwards, the other way around, because it's you were thrust together in a very unlikely partnership.
I was I had no idea, because I as the composer for I was very much not involved in the curation and the creation of R1, and so I also had no idea what to expect when I got there, as to what the One Trans Lady sings would be. And the biggest thing was at the beginning where you went, I can't sing. I thought that was brilliant. And it just sort of took me as an audience member completely out of any sort of expectations or assumptions that I might have made. I thought that was really effective.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. I'll lob it back to you, Alice. What happened to you? Because you did your bit and then sat in the audience for MCYO. What did you get from there?
Well, the primary thing was also an experience as an audience member, which I haven't had this side of COVID. It was the first time I've been in a theatre and actually watched and listened to something, because I did a couple of quick other performances myself just after unlocking, but it was actually the first time back in an audience as an audience member, and that was an amazing experience. Also, being backstage and just seeing the mechanics of a performance, of people backstage in the green room warming up, getting ready, things happening. It's just a wonderful theatrical experience, which I'd missed. And as a solo performer who's often working on their own, by definition, there is nobody else around me. Sometimes a tiny team of, we go into a theatre and put a show on, of 2 or 3 people, but actually being around people. Also, the other thing I learned was what I don't know, just listening to people actually being able to sing, which of course I've heard before, but live, not for a very long time. See earlier statement about COVID.
Well, indeed, yes. I mean, it's because we started last July with a pilot for the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. We're very used now at Tête to more and more people coming in and doing a show, and it is amazing that people are still doing their first thing. I mean, that happened in Guide to the Lakes, the Soprano. Rosalind Dobson said to me, I haven't been in a theatre since March last year, and you go, wow, that is, it's a big threshold to cross. Or Sarah Sarhandi's been isolating the whole time and only just come out. It's a big threshold to cross. Alice, I'd love to know what you think you're going to do. You've already told us in your performance that you don't know yet. Are you any further down the path after the last few days?
Well, obviously, that was the first time I've seen the performance. So I had no idea what I was going to look or sound like, because I actually hadn't seen it until we all sat down just now to watch them. First time seeing the video footage. It was another interesting thing, because generally speaking, being a solo performer, I will go in and I will be responsible for videoing the show as well. So I will, that next morning, get up, or sometimes very late that night after the show, get home and look at it and go, oh dear God, what was I doing? So I've had a few days of not knowing. So yes, I have a good think about that. I've just found out I've got some Arts Council funding towards this, which was great. I was very pleased with that. So I've got a year to work on this, funded through DYCP, Developing Your Creative Practice. I've been talking to a lot of people within the opera profession, and as I say, everyone's been incredibly lovely and everyone's been incredibly welcoming, rather than saying, you can't sing and you want to learn about opera. The reaction has not actually been, well, go away. It's been, oh, that's an interesting project. So everyone's been really inviting. I've got a sort of short list of people who are helping me with singing, or going to start helping me. I didn't really want to start this during COVID, because a lot of people said, well, that's the ideal time to do it. You know, everyone's learning a new skill. Everyone's saying, oh, I'm going to knit tofu and learn how to train sheep or whatever. So I thought, but I don't want to do that, because as it's such a strange world for me, as it's an unfamiliar thing, I need to be in a room listening and actually being with people who can sing. And I don't think I can do it over Zoom. So this whole idea that people said, well, just do it over Zoom, I don't think that's going to work for me. Because one thing that became apparent, we did one thing, I was trying to pitch one note in the whole thing, and I couldn't do it. And we were actually in the, we were doing the tech run beforehand, and I was trying to do one thing, just out of interest, I'll see if I can fix this. And it was in that sort of lower range, which I should be more comfortable with. Down in the bass and baritone range, because that's obviously where my voice naturally sits. and I've learned to move it into different areas. But I couldn't get it. It was just like, is this right? And everyone in the auditorium, including Bill's, going, no, 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 no. I thought, right, okay, that's settled. So it's the fundamental thing with me is pitch. That's my first thing is, can I learn to pitch the basic tenet of Western music, pitch? And that's always the thing that I hit before you get timbre, support, the style of the voice, the characterization of anything. It's just like, can I hit the note? And the answer is usually no.
I'm rather with Pat. I think the delicious moment was you starting and going, I can't sing without meaning to be the slightest bit rude. I rather hope that we get a show next year which is about you not having been able to learn to sing. I hope that doesn't sound wrong.
No, I must admit, I will probably create something, whether it's allowed in the Tête Opera Festival, if the result is failure, I don't know. But one thing I did say, sorry, I'm talking too much, but I will say very quickly. I do actually think it's a valid adventure, whatever the thing is. And to be honest, because I've taken it as a DYCP, which is about developing your creative practice and trying to learn, there may be a sharing at the end. And if there is a sharing, it'll probably be with Tête if they let me back. And beyond that, that might then develop into a project. I might try and create a full piece out of it. But I think whether I learn or whether I don't learn, it's about trying to learn. And this is a connection. It may be a coincidental one between, I think, the two companies. I'm 50, so I am not young. I'm also not from Manchester. I'm from the south. I'm a Ponzi southerner as well, as you probably heard. So I don't fit in at all. But it's about continuing to learn, and I think we should all do that. And whether it's a young company, an older company, people developing from one skill to another skill and trying to extend creative practice, that's valid. And we all have the right to do that, even if we fail. And sometimes the story of failure is equally as interesting as the story of success. And I suppose the story of most operas in terms of the narrative often is failure.
Yes, indeed. Well, on that inspiring note, we need to go downstairs and learn from the next performance in the festival, which you'll be able to watch in a couple of days online. But so we should wish everybody a good night, unless you're coming and joining us later, and send you off to learn something. Thank you very much, all of you, for a really interesting panel. Night night.